Hello and welcome to today's NES Special Education Exam Preparation Study Group. This is session 2. I notice we do have quite a small group here on today. There were quite a few more registrants, so I'm not sure if they got caught up with the events of today or if they'll be joining us a bit late. But we'll attempt to go ahead as scheduled. It may be a bit difficult because of the limited attendees. So if you are on the line today, please do plan to speak up regularly because we have quite a bit of content to cover today. So let's go ahead and get started. And I always like to start with a bit of faith and learning. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So it just reminds us to, when we're going through a difficult time, like preparing for a lengthy exam, we can turn to God and pray and hope, and He will help give us strength to do our best and prepare for this exam. So today's agenda, we will briefly discuss the NES Special Education Test Framework, the study group expectations, Domain 1, Students with Disabilities, Domain 2, Assessment and Program Planning, wrap up, study group information exchange, and the next session. So just a reminder, all of what you're doing to prepare for this exam should come from the test framework. If you haven't already downloaded that, it is available on nestest.com. And some reminders just for the expectations for this study group. Remember, a study group is a group of people joining in the study of a particular topic, meeting at scheduled intervals, discussing individual observations, reading, and research. So it does heavily depend upon your participation and contributions at the scheduled interval, and that you can work with your peers to finish completing the worksheet and preparing for the next session in between times. Could you just give me a hand wave to signal that your thumbs up, you were able to complete the worksheet for Domain 1, Students with Disabilities? So just raise your hand for a thumbs up if you were able to complete the worksheet for Domain 1. I know in our last session we got through a portion of it, but there was still much to complete. So hopefully you were either able to collaborate with your peers or you completed it on your own. But just give me a hand wave for a thumbs up that you were able to complete worksheet 1. Okay, so I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm assuming that means you were not able to complete worksheet 1. So as a reminder, I will send out a follow-up email from today's session, and it will include a list of all of the group members from the first and second session. Hopefully you are already on that list of attendees, but if you would like to be added still, you can certainly let me know. But it is important that you reach out to these group members in between sessions. So please don't be shy. These group members wanted to be part of this group just like you did. Please feel free to email them and see if you could maybe break up the sheet. You could each do a section, or if you could arrange for a phone call together or a Skype session. You can collaborate doing video chat through Google if you have that, Google+. Okay, looks like we have a question coming in. Hi, Alicia.
Hey, this is Leisha. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It took me a minute to connect. I've been having technical problems, and we had bad weather. I live in Selma.
Oh, goodness. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad you were able to join us.
Okay, thank you.
I did say earlier we do have a very small group today, much less than we had expected. So we are going to do our best to continue on as usual, but we will be relying heavily upon the group that we have today to speak up. So if you are on the line today, you will need to be able to speak up to discuss assessment and program planning, which is domain 2. So Alicia, I was just discussing if everyone was able to complete worksheet 1 since our last meeting together. Did you happen to have a chance to complete that?
However, I did not, but I did get a chance to read over it thoroughly and, make some study notes from it.
Oh, good. So, Alicia, I would just encourage you, as well as the other 2 attendees that are on today, that please make sure you reach out to the other students who are on that email list to continue collaborating in between sessions.
Okay.
I'm sure they will have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You sent out an email with everyone's name on it, and somehow I saw where you had sent it to me, but I couldn't locate it.
Okay, that's okay. I'll be sending out another one today, and I'll include that list of all of the names from session 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Did you have any other questions?
That is about it. The material that you are introducing, I feel like it would be very helpful because I have taken the first part of the special education NES test. It is very challenging, and I think this information that you're introducing will help me a lot.
Oh, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Well, thank you. So we'll try to get through as much as we can for today's session. I know there's a lot to cover in worksheet 2, so we'll certainly do what we can during the time we have. Thank you, Lisha.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so as you know, domain 2 is assessment and program planning. So it is made up of 2 competencies, 0003, understand procedures for selecting, adapting, modifying, designing, and using various types of formal and informal assessments. This is particularly important when we get into those scenario type questions where they tell you about a particular learner with a particular disability category or need, and then they ask you, what would you do as the teacher? How would you modify the instruction? Or how would you modify the assessment? And so this really goes hand in hand with knowing the different disabilities. And then 0004, understand strategies and procedures for developing, implementing, and monitoring individualized programs. So we'll go ahead and bring up worksheet 2. Hopefully you all have, I'm having some difficulty opening worksheet 2. Let me see here. And let me get that for you. Okay, so here is worksheet 2. Hopefully you all have a copy of this as well. I did send it out by email after session 1. Okay. So understand procedures for selecting, adapting, modifying, designing, and using various types of formal and informal assessment. Demonstrate knowledge of basic assessment terminology and their characteristics, uses, and limitations of various types of formal, informal, and alternative assessments. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So we do need to know this basic terminology. So we'll go ahead and start with reliability. Alicia, did you raise your hand again?
I didn't, however, I did define that one.
Okay, sure.
Reliability is the degree to which an assessment is done. Let me make sure I'm reading my own writing clearly. A degree to which an assessment is provided
Okay, and I will also add here that reliability is consistency of an assessment data across several repetitions. Okay, so for example, if test scores are reliable, they're similar when the same test taker takes it 2 to 3 times at different intervals. So if you give Johnny a test in September, the beginning of September, and then you give it to him again at the end of September, we can say a test is reliable if he has the same score at both administrations. Okay, so let's go on here. Internal consistency reliability. Internal consistency reliability is consistency of test items with one another by measuring the same quantity. Okay, let's move on to inter-rater consistency. Make sure you pop that hand up fast if you know this one. Inter-rater consistency is reliability among individuals scoring the same test. So if Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Jones are scoring the same test and they score it the same way, that's called inter-rater consistency. Okay, let's move on to validity. Okay, but make sure you put your hand up if you're ready to share validity. Yes, Leisha?
Okay, validity, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
The degree to which an assessment is measured and what is being assessed and what is supposed to measure and to make it true or correct.
That was good. Can you repeat that last part?
What the student is supposed to measure to make it true or correct.
Yes. So essentially, validity measures if the assessment is measuring what it is intended to measure. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go on to content validity. Make sure you raise your hand when you are ready to contribute so I can unmute you. We're just going through this list of terms as quickly as possible. I know we have a lot to cover today, so if you can pop that hand up real quickly when we mention the term, then I can be sure to quickly unmute you. The next one is content validity. Content validity means a test includes items representing the complete range of possible items. Okay, let's go on to criterion validity. Criterion validity means a test scores effectively measure a construct according to established criteria. Okay, going on to concurrent validity. This means a test measures the criterion and the construct at the same time. Okay, predictive validity. Leisha?
Predicted validity, the extent to which a score or scale on a test is predicted and measured. One example can be a cognitive exam.
Perfect. It can also mean the extent to which test scores can effectively predict future outcomes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on here to generalizability. Leisha, did you raise your hand again?
I can answer it. I probably didn't do my cursor. This is
Generalizability.
generalizability to determine the reliability, reproduction, and measurements under a specific condition to focus on a total performance. Such as the test scores on the student's performance.
Yes. So what we're saying is the results from one test can be used to generalize to apply to other tests.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Leisha. Okay, compensatory grading. This is an important one. I don't see a lot of hands. Remember, we do need your contributions. If you don't know right off the top of your head, feel free to look it up real quickly and contribute the best you can. We don't want to rely too heavily on Leisha, although I certainly appreciate that she has done her homework. This is a pretty important one, compensatory grading. Okay. This is the practice of balancing out lower performance in one area with higher performance in another. Okay, so non-compensatory grading. This does not permit such balancing. Okay, let's move on to cut score. Leisha?
A cut score is the point that sets the predetermined level. It tells the difference between, or it differentiate between those who pass and those who fail. And you can use a multiple set of, a variety of ways to cut the scores.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Leisha. That is accurate. Okay, let's move on to standard deviation. You know what? It looks like we are almost to the halfway point of our session already, and we are still getting through these definitions. So I'm going to allow you all to be able to work together on finishing these definitions. And we are, as a group, we are going to move on to the next competency here. So go ahead and scroll down to apply knowledge of strategies for selecting, adapting, and modifying assessments in given situations, including the assessment of nonverbal students and English language learners. So now we're looking at what are our strategies that we can use to help nonverbal students and English language learners, really all students. So if it helps to think about particular groups of students, and then what is some modifications that we can make to select, adapt, or modify assessments. So go ahead and name a particular student group, such as English language learners, or students that belong to a particular disability category. And then go ahead and share some modifications that you would make for selecting, adapting, and modifying assessments. Go ahead and raise the hand icon by your name. Okay, we'll go ahead and just start with some general special needs accommodations that can be made. We can clarify or simplify instructions. We can allow students to highlight or make marks in their test booklet. We can test students in small groups. We can give additional time to complete a test. We can test students separately with a direct supervisor. So those are some general ones. Does anyone have any for a particular student group? Leisha?
For that particular one, you can add technology.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to kind of build on that one and move to another student group, which would be our students with visual impairments. These students may use magnifiers. And then our students with hearing, that are hearing impaired. These students may use audio amplification. And we can also use individual study enclosures to be a noise buffer. I'm going to add hearing impaired. We can also use American Sign Language or manually coded English. Leisha?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you have your hand raised?
No, I'm trying to think of another question.
Okay, no problem.
Mhm.
Oh, for this one, they can also use Braille. Anything else you can think of for selecting, adapting, and modifying assessments for nonverbal students and English language learners? How about students who may have cognitive impairments or attention deficit or behavior disorders? Oh, what's that?
Let me see. Let me see. Attention deficit, behavior disorders. Oh, okay. We use like maybe timers, like we do in class for students with the attention deficit. Like, say for instance, give them a timer and let them know they have so much time to sit before they can move on to something else or be allowed to do something else.
Yes, so you can use testing duration.
Yes.
You can shorten the testing sit time. You can extend over several days. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Anything else? Sometimes students may be allowed to use calculators or math manipulators. We'll put that up here. Okay, so let's go on here. What is another student group we'd like to focus on? How about, since it's marked here, English language learners. I think it's important that we cover that one. So what are some modifications for the English language learners? Okay, so we have here from Lucia, visuals, simplify, modify instructions. Thank you, that's great. We can also have them hear the test instructions translated in their native language. We can also allow them to ask questions in their native language to clarify instructions. Oh, and Lucia also writes in graphic organizers. We can allow them additional breaks on testing day. We can allow them to take tests separately with other ELL students. can also allow them access to word lists or glossaries that are translated with definitions. As long as special needs, you can also use prompts such as tell me or show me to help them point to answers. And we can also allow them to use gestures or movements instead of speech or writing. Okay, does anyone have anything to add to this section? Okay, let's go on. Oh, Leisha? Yes. Leisha?
You can apply concepts and main ideas.
Is that for this section?
Actually not. You're under
EOL?
no, that will not apply to that one. Well, it will. What do you think?
I think it probably would help. Helping them to think about the concept would help them be able to apply particular syntax or discourse for the
Right.
question. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Ortha? Did you have something to add? Okay, so let's move on. Now, apply knowledge of strategies and procedures for administering assessments, including strategies for technology, procedures to avoid bias during the assessment process. It looks like that one is pretty similar to the next one here. So I'll allow you some time to complete the rest of that on your own. Let's move on to the next one. Number 4, understand strategies and procedures for developing, implementing, and monitoring individualized programs. Apply knowledge of screening, pre-referral, referral, and eligibility procedures. So who needs to be screened? Osa?
I would say children with hearing impairments, like hearing screenings.
Yes, they certainly do. We're going to start here with all newborns.
Okay.
Should be screened through early childhood, preschool, and school years. Certainly when there are problems that prompts screening, but really all newborns should be screened. Sometimes students do go unidentified until they get to school, which is obviously not ideal. Usually public schools will conduct the screenings with children in primary grades. Obviously, if a student is showing signs that they could be having a struggle, the teacher works to ensure the screening is conducted on that particular child. Through referral, the teacher can refer the child to have a formal evaluation. Of course, we do have to have a parental consent for that. So there'll be screening and potentially referral for formal evaluation. And this is done up to typically before grade 3. And why would be there would be suspected disabilities or low standardized test achievement. We can also see pre-referral interventions as we look to identify students with disabilities and decrease the referrals for special education services. So make sure you are aware of the pre-referral interventions and how those use the teacher assessment teams. So here for pre-referral interventions, this is when teachers try to address the behavior or learning through modifications. Usually, certain states in the U.S. will have a particular process for pre-referral, and it may include the involvement of the teacher assistance team. Okay, so what is child find referral? Otha?
Child find is this is where they're trying to where they're finding a disability within the child as they are progressing through the school years.
Yes, it's actually before or during early school years. But yes, perfect. And a referral for formal evaluation. Leisha?
Referral for formal evaluation.
Yes, what is that?
It's a process of determining eligibility for special education. And the school obtains consent from the parent or the legal guardian.
Yes, and all professionals must evaluate the developmental learning areas related to the disability suspected.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Leisha. And let's move on to independent educational evaluation. Otha?
Yes, is this an evaluation that is done upon not upon request, but done just to have it? I mean, just to basically have it done without.
So,
Uh, I guess without having. I guess without the school being involved. It's just a evaluation done. I guess through the parents.
yes. So when the parents disagree with the evaluation results, then the school must arrange for an independent educational evaluation to take place for the parent. And so the parent will gather all of that information independently, but the school has to pay for it. The school system will pay for the independent educational evaluation when the parent disagrees with the evaluation results.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And this is permitted under IDEA, that parents do have this right. And if the child is found eligible for special education related to these services, the IEP team must then meet within 30 calendar days to determine eligibility and write the IEP. Okay, let's go on. Interpret and use information from formal and informal assessments to collaborate with the team in making eligibility, program, and placement decisions, determining student goals, and planning and evaluating instruction. So let's break down that competency. We need to interpret and use information from formal and informal assessments to collaborate with the team in making eligibility decisions, program decisions, placement decisions, and determining student goals. So let's go ahead and discuss how we would use formal assessments and informal assessments to make eligibility decisions. Make sure you raise your hand when you're ready to contribute. Okay, it looks like you are a little stuck on this one, so I'll go ahead and skip over this one for now. It looks like we only have about 5 minutes left. So if there's any particular questions, please ask those now. Otherwise, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So today we covered Domain 2. Please think about what have you learned about your strengths related to Domain 2. What have you learned about your weaknesses? And where can you find resources to support your gaps in learning? Who would like to share about what they've learned and where they are going to look to find resources to support them in learning more about Domain 2? Perhaps you found that you have some notes from a previous course that talks about modifications during assessments, talks about collecting data from assessments for IEP planning. Osa?
One of the strengths I've learned, I am learning to understand the different terminologies and the definitions of the terminologies when it comes to assessment and program planning. The weaknesses that I'm having, I mean, it's kind of there, but it's just kind of trying to relate and express it when it comes to students in the modification process. And where I can find resources, I know I can find resources through the classes that I'm taking here through GCU, and also the teacher in the class that I'm working in, because that's a cross-categorical classroom, SPED classroom. So I'm kind of learning all this and filling in the gaps.
Perfect. Thank you, Osa, for that great response. Yes, and I hope many of you will continue to connect with local teachers in your area so you can ask them for resources in these particular competency areas. And also don't forget about your LoudCloud course instructors. If you are having trouble locating resources on a particular topic, please make sure you reach out to them as well. And as a reminder, I am going to be emailing all of you with the study group list that you are all a part of, so you can email each other and continue working on worksheet 1 and 2. And I will send you the worksheets as well so that you can ensure you have those. I'm also going to send you the worksheet for session 3 because in the next couple of weeks we will have our next group meeting for session 3 to cover domain 3. That is a very lengthy domain, so please try to be on time for that one. And does anyone else want to share for their wrap up? Leisha? Leisha, do you want to
hello.
share? Yes.
My strengths are the experience that I already hold as working in special education with students every day. And I have support teachers to help me in the areas as far as what works well with them and what does not. We work with I work with students with different disabilities who are, most of them are autistic. My weaknesses are having to find out what fits each student. I'm still working on that. And
That's a very good point, Leisha. Let me just stop you there for just a moment, because it's great that you have all of that experience, and that's certainly going to help you. Remember, a lot of these questions are scenario type questions. So the more you can ask your mentor teachers, oh, I saw you make that modification. Why
right,
did you make that modification for that particular student? And start
right.
making those connections. That will be very helpful for you.
And my resources would be the material that I've already learned previously before I graduated from GCU. I can look back on, my notes that refer to different subject areas. Also, my mentor teachers and the Loud Cloud that you just referred us to, because I didn't realize that I could go back to that after graduating.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Leisha. And so, as a reminder, you are all part of this study group, so if you have not shared your name yet, you can type it in now, and I'll be sure to add it to our ongoing list. If you added it already in session 1, you don't need to add it again. The session 2 morning meeting is next week. Most of you are part of the evening meeting group. The evening meeting will occur on September 25th at 4 p.m. Arizona time. And then the morning session meeting. So I hope you all have a good week. Looks like we are wrapping up right on time today. So if you don't have any final questions, I will send out that email first thing tomorrow morning so that you can all get started on communicating with one another to finish up worksheet 2. I know we didn't get all the way through it, but at least we got through a good portion of it. Got you a little bit of a start. So good luck, everyone, and have a good week. Bye-bye.